Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. To nobody's surprise, Lane Kiffin, this Ole Miss program, having one of the more successful transfer portal hauls that you see across the country. We've broken down these commitments as they've come in. I figured now is a good time to take a step back and kind of evaluate what Ole Miss has done so far. Talk about some positions they might still need to address in the transfer portal. The thing that stands out to me the most is that a lot of these transfer portal additions, they have 2 to 3 years of eligibility remaining. And a lot of the question about Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss, how sustainable is it what Lane Kiffin is doing at Ole Miss using the transfer portal the way he does? One, I would argue the proof's in the pudding. Like he's consistently trotting out teams that can compete at the highest level of college football. And yeah, 2024, this was an Ole Miss team that underperformed, didn't reach expectations. But you make no mistake about it. This was a team that peak Ole Miss. That's a national championship caliber roster. Lane Kiffin is building teams that have that chance to do it every single year. That's my biggest takeaway. And then you look at what they do in the portal, a lot of these additions, and I think this is a talking point with Lane Kiffin is, hey, if we're going to use the transfer portal as much as we're going to do, we also want to make sure we're having some continuity year to year with our roster. And so a lot of these additions, not only really good football players, but in a lot of cases have multiple years of eligibility remaining. That's something that stood out to me. Want to go through kind of position by position and talk about how Ole Miss has done, what they still might need to do. Now, before we get into it, as always, one, to the Ole Miss fans, I say it all the time. A lot of y'all been rocking with the boys since 12 months ago as we broke down that team in the transfer portal. I can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, you talk about the quarterback position. We knew many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan. Ole Miss and Michigan kind of in similar situations where we got two quarterbacks who are young that we really, really like, but we were looking to add some depth. Now, for Ole Miss, that's hard to do when you have a guy like Austin Simmons, who it's a small sample size, but the sample size we saw of this kid is special. When you have a quarterback like that, it's hard to go out and add a veteran quarterback. You tried at Mikey Keene, you tried at Anthony Calandra. I still think Ole Miss will be able to find a quarterback in the portal, and they weren't trying to go get the best quarterback in the portal either because they know they have a starter. It's kind of adding a little bit of depth to the room. I'm not too concerned about it. If Ole Miss has a good season in 2025, I think we all know who's going to be throwing the football for this Ole Miss offense, and that's Austin Simmons. Now, the running back position, this has been one of those spots that Ole Miss wanted to address. You go back to the 2024 season, to me, probably the most frustrating position group that you saw on this Ole Miss roster. I don't think they were managed the right way. And I think most importantly, you didn't have a guy. You didn't have that true running back one that could do everything for you. Now, took a big swing at Justice Haynes. You took a big swing at guys like Ahmad Hardy. Ole Miss wants to get a premier running back one in the portal, but they also want to be disciplined, and they don't want to overpay for a running back either. Lane Kiffin thinks about that. Lane Kiffin's really thought out in terms of how he wants to build this roster. He let Quinshon Judkins walk to Ohio State because he said, hey, we're not going to use that much resources on a running back. That's kind of the same way the NFL thinks too. Kwan Lacey coming from Missouri, really talented running back out of the 2024 class. I think he certainly could play a role, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss is still looking for that guy. Now, a name that just hit the transfer portal today that I think would make a ton of sense is Makai Hughes from Tulane. I mean, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons at Tulane. He's one of those running backs similar to how we talked about a guy like Justice Haynes who can do everything. 5'11". He's probably up to around 210 pounds. Extremely good contact balance. This is a guy that's a muscle hamster. Deals with contact extremely well. Low center of gravity, thick lower half, but also when he gets to the second level, like can make guys miss and hit some of those home runs that Ole Miss wants to hit. I felt like last year you look at a guy like Henry Parrish. He could hit the home run or be really explosive when he gets to the second level, but probably left a little bit to be desired in terms of those hard, gritty yards. Makai Hughes is a running back that I think can bring the best of both worlds in one running back, which I don't think Ole Miss had last year. Makai Hughes, to me, would make a lot of sense. I mean, you look at the 2024 year for Makai Hughes, over 1,000 yards after contact. This is a guy that deals with contact exceptionally well, can hit the explosive plays. Now you go that's probably the name that I'd be looking at in terms of if you want to find a true running back one, Makai Hughes could be that guy. The pass catcher room, obviously a lot of production that needs to be replaced. I'm a fan of it. Deshaun Stribling, that veteran guy that is going to give you some really good reps. And I think fits the Ole Miss offense quite well. Then you're bringing Caleb Odom. And you also have Caleb Cunningham coming in as a true freshman and Deuce Alexander. So you start looking at the pass catch room, and we'll throw Luke Haas into that one. It's a clear upgrade at tight end for me. I mean, Luke Haas is one of the best tight ends, in my opinion, in the country. I think Ole Miss clearly gets better at that position. And then you're bringing a bunch of wide receivers that can do some different things, and you start playing around with what this Ole Miss pass catch room is going to look like. Caleb Cunningham, I promise, will play a role as a true freshman. Deshaun Stribling, kind of that guy that's done it for a long time, has caught for over 2,000 yards. Caleb Odom, a guy that is extremely talented if you can find the right ways to use him. And then Deuce Alexander, a guy that's trending in the right direction. As a Wake Forest alum, I'm quite familiar with Deuce Alexander, redshirted in 2023, had a really good season in 2024, has 3 years of eligibility. When you look at Austin Simmons, Caleb Odom, Deuce Alexander, Caleb Cunningham, not only can be really good in 2025, you take a look at what this offense is going to look like in 2026 and say they might even be better in 2026. So the runway at the quarterback pass catcher position to me looks really good. Now you go to the offensive line additions, solidifying the inside of the offensive line, right? Delano Townsend, guy that's played a lot of football, has 3 years of eligibility remaining. PJ Wilkins, 3 years of eligibility. Pat Kutas, not as much eligibility, but a proven commodity starting on the inside of the offensive line. In my opinion, one of the better just pure interior offensive linemen that we saw available. And many of y'all know my take on Pat Kutas. He did not play very good at tackle in 2023 when he got healthy and was playing at the right position on the inside, was a very, very good football player. I would like to see Ole Miss grab one offensive tackle. With Micah Pettis leaving the program, I think there are some question marks about what the starting tackle position looks like in 2025. It's a hard position to address, but that's probably the last position on offense outside of running back that I look at and say, would like to see Ole Miss make some moves there. You go to the defensive side of the football. I mean, Principal U, Deshaun Womack, two guys that both are very talented coming out of high school. Principal U, a little bit more of a proven commodity. Deshaun Womack, you're hoping to take that next step going into year 3, both of which have 2 years of eligibility, and two guys that have the talent and look like the SEC bodies you need to stack along the lines of scrimmage. Andrew Jones was a nice addition at the off-ball linebacker spot. That was a position that it was bare in transfer portal, and Andrew Jones to me was one of the best ones. So Ole Miss locking him up, I think, made a lot of sense. Jalen Braxton, to me, a healthy Jalen Braxton playing his best football, bona fide starting cornerback in the SEC. You're bringing a guy like Sage Ryan, who might not be an All-American for you, but has played a lot of football. You suddenly look at this Ole Miss roster and say they had to replace a lot of guys from this 2024 roster, but there's not too many holes remaining for Ole Miss to address. Now, I still think Ole Miss will probably bring in 5 to 7 more additions, ideally at the running back spot, maybe an offensive tackle. But I think Lane Kiffin's done a really, really good job, building this roster back up after losing a lot of production in 2024. And look, you can knock them all you want. They underperformed in 2024. The idea of the offseason, the idea of the transfer portal is put yourself in a spot to compete at the highest level of college football. Ole Miss is doing that. Like, this is an Ole Miss roster that you look at in 2025 and say it's going to be a damn good roster. We'll see how the rest of the cycle turns out. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.